It's 5:30, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is the April 18th work session for the City Council of Minnetrista. First order, I'll just do a quick roll call. Public Works Superintendent Gary Peters, Director of Administration Ellie Paulfus, Don Motzko, our City Clerk, David Abel, Community Development Director, Brian Grimm, Finance Director, our brand new and first meeting. Jasper Krugel, our City Administrator. I'm Lisa Whalen, the Mayor, and Council President are Pam Mortensen, John Chamberlain, and McGregor, Kathleen Refkin, and then on the end we also have our City Engineer, Allison Felsky, with us. So, with that, there's only one other thing I want to add if we have time, just a quick discussion on future work sessions. So, with that, we have water meters, replacement discussion, and stormwater assessment management plan. We're going to start with the water meters. I think that's Gary? Or who wants to take that first?
No. Do you want me to start, Brian? Or?
Gary's brief, I'll let him start. I'm kidding.
Gary is brief?
I'll try to be brief.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. I just wanted to kind of bring with some meters to kind of show you what we actually have out there, because I'm sure many of you don't know. There are three types of water meters available to use: mechanical, electromagnetic, and ultrasonic. Electromagnetic are used more in the wastewater plants and stuff like that for dirtier water and stuff. What we have here are the old disc meters. So this lets you see we have two styles. This one had a register that goes to the outside, so they would have to run a wire all the way through the house to the outside and put a touch reader outside, which got changed to a different to a remote reader. And then the other style is a 1-inch, the bigger heavy meters, and then it has a one piece on it. And this is actually what's two parts are. This is what's going bad. There's batteries in here that send out a signal. When you send a signal up to read it, it wakes it up and it sends a signal out. And these are starting to go bad. They were good for about 10 years. We've gotten 20 out of them. Knock on wood, they've been going good, but they are starting to drop off. This one is an example of a 50-watt reader. Our transmitter, we have 40s, 50s, and 60s in there. The new ones are 100 watt, which means the strength of signal that it puts out. So it lasts a longer. The new ones now are the ultrasonic, which basically is a mag-type meter, so there's no mechanic. So inside here is a disc that actually turns, and as it turns, there's a magnet on there, which creates a magnetic field, which in turn rotates the hand on the dial, and as it makes revolutions, then it turns your numbers. That's how it calculates it. So as this is turning, the magnet turns this, and you get the reading. The issue that you have when these are really accurate when they're new, but as they get older, a couple things come into play. There's quite a buildup of sediment and grime, and this one's actually pretty clean. But we get it from the high iron that we have in our water before that, and the manganese really gummed them up, and just the wear and tear slows them down, so they become inaccurate. Where the new ultrasonics, they use more of a sound wave through here, so there's a transmitter and receiver in here that shoots the signal through as the water's flowing. It picks up that signal. The nice thing about an ultrasonic is it will detect a real low flow. So if you have a toilet that leaks or anything, it will detect that water moving through, and we can pull that up on a computer program and say, if they have a lot of water use, we can say, yep, hey, this is what's going on. You're having a lot of leakage at night. You might have a toilet that's leaking. The difference in the style reader then is 100 watt, which is this unit right here, which is by Itron. And Itron readers are probably the world's most recognized. They're one of the largest producers for electric and gas and for water around the world. We use a Badger meter with an Itron reader. So why they've done that here, don't know. Itron was here before I was here, so that's what they've always used. So all our reading equipment is that. So, but the new meters are all electronic. Have a lot of features in here that you can hook up to tell people. We had one in one of the newer constructions that froze, and they had said we had tightened it up too tight. And I know that froze because there's a warning sign on here that says out of temperature range, and the meter cracked. And they were already cleaning up the brand new townhouse. And I said, well, if it was on us, you'd be making us pay for it. I know you're not because it's frozen. And he goes, yeah, you're right. So they had to go good for a new meter. So, but that's just kind of a synopsis. If you have any questions, on it, I just wanted to bring that in just so you kind of see what we're dealing with and what's happening. The battery life on the new ones are 20 years. Same with the meters. So, if you have any questions on meters, I'll kind of stop and let you ask questions if you have any.
If the old meters are reading incorrectly because they're kind of gummed up, are they reading short?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
so the gallonage we put through last summer may not have been what we thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't slow down a lot. I mean, it can go up to as much as, they say 10% off, which is quite a bit, but I don't know if ours are that bad. Some of the older ones probably are that have been out in the system for quite a while. I mean, some of these meters are pushing 20 to 25 years. So before the water treatment plant, with all that iron and the manganese going through there, yeah, you're getting a lot of buildup in them. So, but we see it out there. So, but that's kind of what brings this up to this point where we're going to need to start changing these out. And they are approaching 20 years. So they're also on an older, what they call an automatic reading system, as I explained in here. So basically, when we go around, we have a transmitter that sends out a signal, wakes them up, bounces back, brings the data into a reader, which is downloaded then onto the computer through the Banyan program, which sends out the billing. That's what tracks it. So we've been very lucky to have the batteries lasting as long as they have. Some of the cities that I've talked to our distributor, he's got one larger city outside of Chicago. They're dropping at a rate of about 250 a week are dropping off. They're that bad. Ours are not that bad. We've got, I think, 6 right now that have dropped dead completely that we're needing. And we can tell because we go out there, it does. We can now, with the new record, we can hear the ping. It shows a low battery warning. And most of them are low battery. So,
I've got another question. Go back to the frozen meter. That one got frozen?
not this one, but one like this froze.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have weather like this all the time. If it happened once, how do we know it's not?
They didn't have any heat in the new townhouse.
Okay, so that's the reason why.
That's why it froze. They tried to pass it off because we were billing them for a new one, and they said it was our fault that was put incorrectly, that we over tightened it. That's impossible to do with it. And you could tell by the way it cracked, and it had the warning on it. So They were trying to get by without it. So we do have instances, though, where the meters have frozen in houses. I mean, people go away on vacation, don't think about power goes out. I mean, we've had that. We just had another one. It's the second, I think, or third time maybe up on Game Farm Road right next to the water treatment plant. That house, the meter's in a really bad location. It's a rental, and it froze again last winter. We could not go in there, to shut anything off because the water was about 3 feet deep, and there's electrical in there. We had to wait for Excel to come and turn everything off before we could even get in to do anything. So, it's quite a mess when they freeze. So, but a lot of that's why we post on the thing. Hey, if you're going out of town for any extended time in the winter, we can shut the water off at the curb stop. So, to prevent that from happening. So, but.
So the one model that froze up is going in all the new homes?
This is the new one that we're putting all over. Yes. Yep, they're very accurate. They're extremely reliable. When we replace this, it's written on there. It's actually in the flyer we send out. Your readings may be higher. Your bill might go up just because of the accuracy is just so much better, and you're getting that low flow. When these are new, the disc meters will turn. You'll get that. You'll see the red dial turning. But as they get older, and it starts to wear, get a little gummed up, it won't turn as fast as much. This will get everything. So, like I said, we can also do a reading off this and say you're getting a lot of flow. And I think we have not done it yet, but I think you can even break it down by hours. I believe that you can get it. So if you got flowage at night, it'll show, hey, between 1 and 3 or 1 and 4 a.m., you're actually having some slow flow, which means the toilet might be leaking or something. So it is very nice that way.
So I'm assuming those are inside then, right?
Yes, yep, all our meters are inside.
We don't have meters.
Yep.
Is there any maintenance that the residents are responsible in caring for these?
The only thing that we ask always is just to make sure that they're readily accessible. So if something does go wrong, we can get at them. But otherwise, once they're in place, there's not much that needs to be done. So, they're the new ones. They never had any. People would take off the readers or whatever. These are, once you tamper with them, they'll send out a tamper warning. So, pretty much once they're put on too, we put security wire on these so that we know that if something happens, the wire's broken. So, they're sealed with our water seal and everything. So, yeah, but otherwise, there's not much the residents need to do with them. So.
Okay. And the batteries, who replaces the batteries?
You don't. They're sealed in here, so you replace the whole unit.
Oh, okay.
So, it's actually, if you pull this apart, you'll see the circuit board and everything because of the location that some of them are in. Everything's just encased in a gel in there to kind of protect everything. So it's just one big circuit board with everything's glued together in there to seal everything up.
So on these new ones, is there a warranty?
Yep, we do have some that don't read right. We have a couple right now that we're replacing, and our supplier just, we wait and get 4 or 5 of them that aren't good, that are either programmed wrong or something. They come back, they grab them, then they ship them back to us, reprogram them,
Okay.
and take care of them. So the relationship we have with Meter Technology Services is really good. I mean, they are the only Badger dealer in the state, so. But they are really good. I mean, they've been doing it for several years and actually broke off from the old supplier after the old supplier lost Badger. To rep them, they actually went and pursued Badger to start this business and say we want to keep supplying, the area and keeping being a rep. So it's
What
really
is
good.
the warranty period again, I guess, to follow up on? Or
Basically, we'll know if anything's wrong with it within the first, month. I mean, you'll know, or by the first reading, we'll know if something's wrong with it. And they've been really good. I mean, we've had meters that have been out there for a little over a year that have gone all of a sudden haywire for some reason. Most of it kind of power surge or something maybe in the house, and it kind of zapped it, but they've replaced them.
So you don't get any with weak batteries?
Nope, everything. And this battery does not start so these can sit on the shelf until you wake them up for the first time. That's when the battery life will start.
Okay.
So, I mean, and same in here. Until this is woke up and actually running, you're not going to, the battery is not going to be used. And they're just a button battery is all they are, like a,
Yep.
bigger than a watch battery, but that size. So.
Gary, how come we have different meter sizes? We have 5/8, 3/4, 1 inch, and 1.5. How come the different sizes?
Your older homes and when they first did water meters and stuff, I mean, they were all 5/8, 3/4 plumbing throughout the house.
Right.
Now everything is 1 inch.
Oh, okay.
And some of your larger homes have 1.5 inch. 1.5 was put in a lot of Woodland Cove because of the fire code that was going to be coming to put fire systems in the homes.
Right.
That I don't think it got taken out of there. So, but everything that was stubbed off to 1.5 inch, some people still opt for it. If you have a very large house with a pool, they would put them in. So, but most of the 1.5 inches, I think there's only 5 of them that we have that are in actual homes. We have several though in the parks, in Three Rivers. We have 1.5 and 2 inch that do the irrigation systems.
Okay.
So, but so basically what we did is we went out and we had this kind of set that we were finding this out. Brian and I kind of set it up for over a 4-year period. We kind of underestimated what the numbers are going to be, not knowing at the time what meters were going to do and how much they're going to go up. So over a 4-year period, now we're going to try to do it over this 2-year period. We list the neighborhoods in there that need to get done. The meter change out too is going to be a little bit too much for us to do. We tried to do the north end several years ago. Mike did a wonderful job, but when you have that many, it's just hard for one person to try to do it all. And besides doing everything else, so we went and discussed this with Meter Technologies. They are our supplier of the meters. The ERTs come from a different supplier, which is now a nationwide company, United Systems. So they're the only supplier of Itron ERTs for pretty much the entire country now. They have one supplier for that. As far as Badger Meter goes, we are obtaining a letter that says they are sole supplier for the area for our state. We would have to go to Wisconsin to get another quote, but we're going to get the same exact pricing because Badger will set that up. And they are quoting a little bit cheaper than what we normally pay if we're only doing a 24 order, a 36 meter order, just because of the volume that we're putting out.
So we get a discount?
We're getting a discount, yeah. Okay. It's I think it was $4 or $5 per meter.
Okay, and then do these prices that were in their packet here, the $219, $574, and the $205, $613, is that good for both years then?
Yes, yep,
so
that is what's quoted for both years.
Okay, and then you checked with Ron, I'm assuming that it's okay to not go out for quotes?
Correct. Brian and I talked about that. We're getting a sole source supplier letter to that. That'll satisfy the bid quote requirement for it.
Okay.
So we wanted to make sure that we were good with them. And they work with Hydro Corporation. HydroCorp is their name, and they will work with them. They're the company that comes out and does all the work. So they'll come out, they'll do all the flyers, all the mailings, all the appointments. Mm-hmm. They'll take care of them from A to Z. They'll have everything done. They'll ask what we want for our billing program. So what they'll do is they'll come in, they'll take a picture of the old meter, they'll take the old meter reading, they'll install the new meter, they'll take a picture of the new meter in place, wake it up, get it ready to go, answer residents' questions, and then put everything into what we want on the database, and then we can bring it back on the thumb drive, put it into our Banyan program, and it'll just feed right in, so everything will be updated automatically.
And so you can have some of these meters online. I mean, they don't. So some, because you can't do this all in one day or even in 1 week.
Correct.
So
It'll take several. It'll take a month or two for them to do,
right.
probably.
Okay. So some can be the old and some can.
Oh yeah, that's not an issue. What we're running into though is eventually it's probably going to be not so much the end of this year, but the end of 2023. What we have out there will not be accessible by our reading equipment.
Okay.
They're just going to be outdated. So it's a lot of money. We know that. We looked at, it's a lot more than what we had estimated. As I put in here, about 190,000 we're looking at. It's 425,000, but we're doing a lot more meters. If we're going to do it, we're going to do a big change out at once. The meters will be the first time that we've had capital outlay, because the very first time all these went in, the builder paid for everything. So
And going forward, the builder will pay for the new ones.
any new ones the builder always pays for. So this is our first capital outlay for a meter to replace. The only reason that we would not replace a meter in a house and pay for it is if it froze and something like that, then it would be their responsibility. But like I say, the first time it went out, the first costs were all on the builder. So the homeowners actually pay for that through their home permits. And so now this is our first real expenditure on here. So like I say, due to the buildup of the manganese and the calcium and that type of stuff, the new ones will not slow down, and they probably will read a slightly higher. So, over time, they will pay for themselves. And then what they just want to kind of mention, too, that so we don't run into this again, talking to Renee and Don about this, setting up on there, taking the meter install dates, putting 15-year time check on there, and as a 15-year approaches, we can start looking at how many meters that we have to replace and start doing a program and do some each year leading up to that, so we don't have to do 1,000 of them. We can do maybe 200 this year, 200 next year, so space them out a little bit more and not have this big hit at one time. So
Gary, just a question. So Hunter's Crest, they're actually going on 20. What about Woodland Cove?
Woodland Cove is all pretty new.
Okay.
We went back. When I talked to Joe Mirnes, who is the vice president of meter technology, he said pick a year to go back to. We have chosen 2015 as the year what we're going back to. Anything before that, we're changing out. Anything, excuse me, at that time and before, we're okay. Because we're only on the 7 years of it out of a 20-year meter.
So
because most of Woodland Cove is going to be this new. It might have an older meter yet, but it's got the new reader. And now with the water treatment plant, we're not going to have a build-up like that. But like I say, those will all be scheduled now. Going 15
forward,
years now, we'll start that process there.
Okay. All right. That's what I was wondering.
So, basically, we're looking to, as for recommendation, to bring back a resolution to approve the change out at the May 2nd meeting if we've answered all your questions. And without it, basically the meters die, we get no reading, and you get no money. So unfortunately, it's a necessary evil to do, and it should have been planned out a little more, and that's kind of on me not realizing it too. And but I'll take some of the blame. 10 years ago, they should have been thinking about it too, though, when this meter started beeping. So, but knock on wood, we don't read monthly, so that does save battery life. We're going to read quarterly, so we're not waking up very often. There are final reads that we wake up for, but it doesn't take much power out of the batteries to do that, where if you're reading monthly, it's going to take, of course, 12 times to wake it up instead of 4. So, and discussed it with Jasper when he came here too about doing a radio read complete system where you can do it right from here. We looked into that. You can get onto systems for on our own. We could put something in through Itron. Itron is teaming up now with Excel and a lot of different power companies and gas companies to get on their reading systems. So Excel is doing their systems. They're upgrading all their readers and putting remote readers in so that they can read from an office. And basically we could get on that system, pay a fee, and then use their system. They would send us our numbers every month. The only difference is instead of being 100 watt, we'd have to have a 500 watt, and we'd have to replace every one of them, including all the ones in Woodland Cove.
Okay.
And at that point, it's about $4 to $5 more for doing that. Well, actually more now because we locked in at a good rate because these just went up $9. So we locked in. Before that, actually, the rep stopped on Friday, and I'm hoping you bless us because we do have them on order, so we can cancel it. But we're saving over $9,000 just on meters, just ordering them now. So he can cancel it. I just need to tell him by tomorrow. But it's not a big deal then. But we just wanted to get it in. So, but I mean, we did talk about that remote reading, and we only read 4 times a year, and we can get it done in less than 5 hours. We can drive the entire city, get everything in and done.
Wow. That's
Good.
really fast.
Yeah, we especially with the new readers, you used to have to go down every street and wait for it to beep and watch it and then go back, and we used to take a full day. But now with the new readers and the new reading system, they pick up so much better.
You don't have to go down every single street.
We don't.
Just like
in the older neighborhoods, we still do, but like in Woodland Cove, we can pretty much go down the main drag and it picks everything up. So,
Okay.
which is really nice. I mean, it just boom, you're done. So once this get done, I mean, once you're done, I mean, we could be down to 2-3 hours and be done with reading. So, which would be nice.
So
All right.
I don't have any issue with the project at all, but,
Yes.
well, how come we have that magic money in that fund? How come we have that much magic money in that fund? Basically, we're taking a 2-year project, or a 4-year project, we're stuffing it into 2. Just tell me about the money.
That's why and even a few years ago when we bonded for the water tower, I wanted to bond for the whole thing versus shaved off $500,000. That's why you have a fund balance and stuff, and that's we have. I think in the financial update and at the regular meeting, you can see in the cash report we have $950,000 in the fund right now, and we're getting another $180,000 with the Woodland Cove 8th edition. So that's why you keep a fund balance.
Okay,
to be able to do some of these things that come up, such as this, as far as our scope.
So we're not taking away from any emergency money for
Oh,
water issues right now?
No. And ultimately, once we get into the, we're doing the utility rate study, and once we get into the wells and the water treatment, I mean, that's all going to have to be financed. I mean, that's, it's just, that's something like this we can handle $200,000 over a couple of years, or $400,000, $200,000 each year, but $4 million, no, whatever. So,
it's going to be more than that.
no, I know that's what I mean. I'm just more going the $400,000, $4 million, but yeah, it's going to be more than that.
It's going to be a lot more than that.
So,
And they were really good about holding the pricing down. I mean, I think the $83 is a great price to pay to have them installed. I mean, I was expecting when Brian and I first talked about that, we were thinking, maybe at least 100. And 83 is very good. And the company that's doing it, they're doing 4,000 in Chanhassen, and that's a typo. It's 25,000 that they're doing at Eden Prairie this year alone. So, and they're good at what they do. I mean, they've been in business for 30 years doing just this. They're based out of Detroit, and that's what they do for all right. Might have done your city too, I suppose, when you're at Le Sueur.
Little different company.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, they're been around. So, like I say, it's not cheap, but it's definitely needed. So
you'll have at the May 2nd meeting more of the formal proposal with the resolution that outlines,
correct. Yep, with everything
or contractually and the timeline and stuff like that.
Yep, timeline. We'll have that more established. We know when we want to do it. We want to try to do it that September, October, November area, and then January, February, March is what we're trying to do. When Brian and I talked about, we wanted to break this. We were trying to get it all done in 1 year, and we figured let's try to break it up evenly. That's why we have the Palmer Point Hunter's Crest, trying to even out the number of meters, and then then it turned out even out the dollar amount is a lot easier. So you will notice that we do have some unknown sizes, and that is taken care of. When we look through our records, we don't know what meter sizes they were. Nothing was checked on them, of course, back in the day. So they're going to have extra meters on hand. We'll just work out the balance when we're all done to see what it is. We're assuming they're all going to be a 3/4 or a 5/8 on the north end of town. So they're all older homes. So we'll work that out with them when we're all said and done. So
There's probably not too many 5/8, but
pardon?
there's probably not too many 5/8.
You'd be
Generally,
surprised.
it's
There's
3/4.
quite a few of them out there.
Okay.
So I mean, there's quite a few, and then there's a lot of 5/8 that have been converted to 3/4. So
All
So
right.
when these are all done, other than Woodland Cove, are there any other areas that need to be swapped out? Or this is
not right
the
now,
thing,
nope. And then it'll start coming. It'll be probably about 10 years down the road. We'll be talking, hey, this area, we'll start spacing them out and doing them, and maybe by that time in 10 years, we'll have the staff on hand that can, we can kind of start, throughout the year replacing meters, and doing it. We don't have to do it all at once. We can, that's why I say we can plan for this and maybe try to do it in-house, so.
Probably one of the growing pains of having a relatively new water system is obviously things like this is it's sort of newer, for us or whatever. So.
Well, the Hermitage Shores or Hermitage area, for instance, is not in the County Road 44 because that's fairly new.
Yeah, not
County
Hermitage,
Road-
but it is the Lakeview, Shady in
Yeah,
that area,
and Trillium,
Bay.
Trillium, okay.
Yep,
Yeah,
in that
that's what I
area.
thought.
So
Okay.
that's where that I kind of just. I didn't want to break down too many neighborhoods. That's why I'm kind of just giving that
that's
general
fine.
area. So, and then we're going to take care of all the irrigation meters ourselves in house. We're not going to pay them to do it, and then we'll take care of everything at Three Rivers Park that's due to update too. So,
All right. Okay.
So, just to make sure I'm clear on this, so Woodland Cove is not on here. What other ones aren't on here right now on this list?
Hermitage.
the ones that would not be on here is all of Woodland Cove, and then it would be up on the north end. It's
And Hermitage.
and Hermitage is not on there, and then it would be the Dutch Knoll area. I don't believe and Sunnybrook is on here, and then it would be the new Red Oak and
Orchard Cove. Orchard Cove, yeah.
Everything else on the north end is we have 47 that are left to do up on that end. So, or I should say, the unknown, and then you see 100 and we did over half of them already. So we only have about half left up there. So
20.
the hard part is, for us is trying to get in the house. That's why it's just let them do it. And
Yeah.
And is it always the responsibility of the city to replace the meters?
yes,
Always, always, always.
yep. No matter what, see, the homeowner or the builder may buy it, but it is ours to take care of. And that's because that is our income source from them. So that's why we kind of monitor them and
Okay.
take care of it. So same with the anything in the parks or the outer irrigation zones out there with the RPZs and the meters. Those meters are very expensive. That's why we take them out, we store them, we take care of. Because a lot of time, we had a couple since I've been here that when they first started, they disappeared. Can't find. Well, they switch companies, and the company gets rid of it. They don't care. So then they're buying a new one. So we take them out, we take care of them, we label them, we reinstall them, they test them. That's just a lot easier to do that so that we can have control over what happens with our meter.
The last other question, I know the answer to this, but just for other people. The water fund, the money that we are using is all paid for by the city water users only.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep. No tax
I knew
dollars.
that, but I just want to make sure everybody else on the tape knows that. So, okay.
Yeah. Good comment. Okay, so we're on board with that? Okay, I'm seeing heads nodding, so you can bring that back. I'm assuming it would just be a consent agenda item then?
Yes, we just set up there. It would have the sole source letter, everything in
Right.
there, kind of a timeline outlay.
Okay, and then if there's questions, we can always ask.
Yep.
All right. Swamp update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council may recall a couple of years ago, we started taking a look at this stormwater asset management program, which is a tool that's used to take a look at all the stormwater ponds, wet basins, filtration, etc. And it assigns a score to them, kind of similar to the pavement management program. And if you have a score of 100, it'd be like a brand new basin, similar to a street. And then over time, the program takes into account the area draining to that best management practice or the BMP, and the score deteriorates or declines over time. In Minnetrista, the majority of these stormwater BMPs are privately owned. Some of them we don't. We've made some assumptions, or a note to check that it's privately owned, but we need to figure out who owns it. And then there are some that are publicly owned. When we first started discussions about this 2 years ago, we were looking at what threshold would we look at notifying these private entities, and then also for the city's purposes to budget for stormwater maintenance. We landed on a number of 65, just to keep that the number of notifications manageable. and us as we're kind of doing a little bit of a soft launch on this, making sure that we're hitting the mark as far as who we're notifying, what the letter states, helping them through the process of finding the appropriate companies to do the work necessary to determine what the next steps are. So as a summary, I provided a list of the 2020 ponds that were identified. And so there was 4 HOAs. I originally had it in my head that there was only 3, but I forgot we had Woodland Cove, had some of the small 4 bays, which I'll talk about later. So I reached out to those folks. I heard from Hunter's Crest and met with an HOA representative, and I haven't heard from that individual since to see if they had done any investigative work to see how much sediment is in those ponds.
I'm sorry, with Hunter's Crest, who did you meet with?
I don't recall her name off the top of my head.
Okay.
She was from the HOA management company.
Oh, okay.
And so Hunter's Crest had always kind of had this on their radar and knew it was coming. And so I was a little surprised when I didn't hear back from her, and I just reached out to her again and haven't heard back. Hermitage Shores, I did hear back from a gentleman from their homeowners board and worked with him. In that instance, it wasn't a regular pond. It was a filtration feature in the cul-de-sac island. And so I gave him the parameters of what we needed to see, and he provided that evidence. And so we're good on that. That BMP is functioning as designed. And then the other 2 I did not hear back from. Palmer Point. I did have to dig around a couple times to get the right individual, and then Woodland Cove. So the Woodland Cove, as I mentioned, they're called 4 bays, which is kind of a little, it's a little pond, if you will, right where the storm pipe comes into the pond. And the intent of that is it usually has large rocks to dissipate, slow down the water coming in and settle out. And when I talked to our folks in Water Resources about it, they said, those 4 bays, I asked if they should really be in the system because they're not meant to take out a lot of sediment. They're meant to slow down the water, take some of the sediment out. And so we talked about that these would be more of a structural BMP, which is similar to like a sump pump, where you expect to see some sediment come out right away, and it would be an annual inspection, that sort of thing. So they were comfortable doing that. So we're looking to move some of those 4 bays off of the list and work with these HOAs to say, you need to do annual inspections on this, and this is what you would need to look for. So that would take care of the Woodland Cove HOAs. And then we're moving forward into 2022. We reran the swamp scores, and my apologies to the council, as I realized after the packet went out and with some discussions with Councilmember Chumperland, the better way to communicate this information would have been to have the 2020 swamp score, the 2022, and then the projected, and then a note for any disparity. So we'll certainly be doing that moving forward. But through this analysis, we did find that there was 4 more ponds that came below that 65 threshold. There were also 2 ponds that the score increased. One is P7 and the other one is P121. P7 is behind City Hall. Public Works went out and excavated that pond. So that one has been brought back up. That swamp score has been brought back up. And P121, it's not a city-owned pond, but the council may recall that was the pond off Bayside Lane, just to the west of Minneapolis Avenue. And since we had a contractor in there doing some of the improvements with the stormwater inlet going into the pond, we included some excavation with that project. So those 2 scores were adjusted, again leaving us with 4 ponds that are now into that below that threshold of 65, and that's included on page 6 of your packet. We've identified, they're all privately owned. One is the Woodland Cove Master Association, so over by the pool house, it looks like. And that one just went under that 65 threshold. And then another one is Heatherwood Glen, which is off of, I believe that's the one off of Langwood.
Yes.
So that was just the Townhome Association off of
110.
Sunnyfield Road there.
And 110, yeah.
And then another privately owned one, which we would have to look into the ownership. That's one of those ones that we flag, and it's not apparent who would own that BMP.
And
then-
what is W9? Being everything that's on the sheet is P for pond. Is this wetlands? Or?
Yeah, I believe so. The old wetland rules used to allow you to use wetlands as a stormwater pond, but they don't anymore. So I believe the W designation is for a stormwater pond that is actually a wetland, but
Which we would remove them because we're not, that'd be DNR issues, wouldn't it?
well, we would certainly check and
Depends.
make sure we're not triggering any DNR regulations, but typically to go and excavate sediment out of a wetland is considered an exempt practice for
Okay.
those purposes.
So all the 4 bays will be removing from the sheets as well?
Correct.
Okay.
So we'll be doing a data cleanup as long as the council's comfortable with that explanation. We think that's the prudent thing to do. The fourth pond on the list is Jennings Cove, so not within the project area for this year, but to the south of that project area. And that swamp score dropped quite a bit from 2022. And the explanation is, in 2020, looking at the area that drains to that pond, it was 4.5 acres. Well, then as we were going in with the 2022 street improvement project and getting all the storm pipes, understanding which ones connect to where and that sort of thing, the drainage area is actually 18.5 acres. So it's a lot more area draining to that
We
pond.
knew that before, though.
We did?
Yeah, because what's happening is it's draining, so 151, it's draining some of that into that pond from north of 151.
Okay.
We knew that when we looked at the pond years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's part of
Yeah.
this program is still, as far as program goes, some of the data is still in its infancy, so we'll still be seeing some of this cleanup work as we move through. So that's the reason it dropped so significantly from 2020. Now, that's what the computer program is telling us based on the drainage area, what that sediment loading will be. It may not, in fact, be that, if we look at, for example, the Woodland Cove one, where it just went under that 65. The next step in this process is to get that bathymetric survey. So it's the topographic survey, if you will, underneath the water, and to determine how much sediment is in there. And that would verify what the swamp score is. And so if we're seeing a lot of sediment in there, consistent with the program, we would know that it would need to be excavated. And we would work with the individuals in that respect. So when we looked at the process for this, we figured that sending out a letter to the HOA would be an appropriate first step, and I included an example in the packet tonight. And staff's recommending that we continue following that course for these additional 4 ponds as well as the 2 non-responsive HOAs. Again, as an education component, here's what's happening. Invite that conversation to understand what the next steps are and provide them good information on how to best go about getting that work done. So I think that was all I really wanted to go through with the council, see if you're comfortable with the process. Certainly if we have folks that continue to be non-responsive, we would need that conversation of what the options are for the council to consider. We always like to try to take the cooperative approach first, but if we continue to have non-responsive folks, what would the next step be to have the city do the work themselves and or with a contractor and then assess the amount? We can certainly talk those next steps if that's something council would like to talk about tonight or another time.
We have time.
So I guess my first question with the council is, are you okay with letters going out to the 2 HOAs from last year and then the additional 4 this year, similar to what we had done a couple of years ago?
Yes.
Yeah, but shouldn't the letter say something to the effect that you received a letter prior and we're following up and we do need to hear back from you so
Yep.
that we do hear from them?
I would bet the Woodland Cove was when it switched over to a different HOA contact, because that's what happened around
Yeah.
that time period.
Yep, and I can certainly do that. And I did send up follow-up letters last year. I sent them in June and October or December. I think it might have been December. So I did send out 2 letters last year, and that's where I caught with Palmer Point. I did a little bit more digging and found a different person, like an actual person at that company responsible for it. So I would certainly say, and include the past correspondence that we've notified you. This is now the 3rd time for those folks, but just reiterate the importance of it, and then also give the first notice to the other HOAs.
So maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse, but in all of these, Hermitage, Hunters, Palmer, then of course Woodland Cove, but they're all 4 bays. We're looking at the ones that have a score of under 65 or under, but they have other ponds in each of these as well. So I guess the question is, we're not only, hey, by the way, do you know about this, but do you are aware you have more than just the ones we're questioning?
That's a great point. We could certainly modify the letter to include that information as a heads up. Here are the other ponds within your HOA, and here's what the current scores are of those ponds.
That sounds
If
good.
that's something, okay. I'll make note of that.
Some don't have more than one pond. Jennings Cove only has 1 pond. Palmer Point they actually have 2, but 1 drains into the other one, I think. So I don't know if it's considered 1 or 2.
Yeah, well, we can certainly sort that all out,
Yeah,
but I think
right.
that's a great
But
suggestion.
it is. Then they know because they might say, okay, well, if we do this, when is the next one due, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
And I did, after meeting with the representative from Hunter's Crest, not only the HOA management company, but a couple members of the board also reached out asking for some other information, and so I did provide them with that information on other ponds within their HOA. But I think that's a great recommendation.
yeah. Yeah, especially the larger ones like Hunter's Crest and, yeah.
Should there be a timeline of when we would like to have them respond?
I can certainly put that in there. The initial notice, we talked about the ideal time frame to do the work, and because if you recall, the original discussion when we talked about timing of this was, some HOAs, perhaps many of them, don't have this on their radar. They don't understand how much it would cost. They don't have a budget, and so we wanted to give them the opportunity to have several months to adapt to the notification and have that conversation with staff. I can put a deadline in there and see if that maybe gets somebody to respond a little bit.
Because there's no responses. So that does concern me a little bit.
Yes, we can certainly do that, and like I said, if ideally once we get the process all ironed out, if we have the, here's what happens if we don't hear from you, would be the second notice, right?
I think that would be a good way to do it. Okay.
Legally, these are owned. I asked you this question this morning. I'm just going to ask it out loud now. These are privately owned. So if I buy a house in Woodland Cove, in my write-up with the house, it says I'm going to be responsible for an assessment from the city if this storm pond's not done.
So it's shifted. So we're much better. The city has really done a good job as far as currently, and I don't know however many years this has happened, but with the development agreements, they get these stormwater management agreements that really do stipulate what the city, that they're privately owned.
The
what
HOA gets them?
Correct.
The HOA gets them.
And
And
so-
is it the HOA's responsibility to tell the residents?
We get a really big packet with a lot of stuff in it. It's like hundreds of pages.
And odds are no one reads it.
Oh, I read it.
Oh, you
I
read
don't
it?
remember everything about it. I mean, I'm sure I glanced over the ponds part and went, I don't care.
But the other thing that we've done, maybe you're getting to this, is when we do a new development, we put a district over it, if you will. So it's right up front. In other words, it's a stormwater tax district, so that if they don't do this, we already have all of the mechanisms in place that we could go in and do it and then assess them for it. But that's only the newer additions. I think, like Red Oak, some of the newer ones up north, but not all of them. Like, I don't think Sunnyfield or Sunnybrook has it, and there's some older ones that don't have it. But the newer ones, I don't know when we started. Do you know, David? I want to say right around Red Oak, Orchard Cove, Woodland Cove.
Woodland Cove.
Yeah, that's when we started. But I don't think Hunter's Crest has it.
There's legal mechanisms in which we could get all
Right.
of them done.
Right, there is. But when we do the tax district kind
That's
of
just
thing,
another level of it.
right, and it's then easier, is my understanding.
It's another.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
I mean,
They all have stormwater maintenance agreements, no matter how old they are.
yeah.
It's easier to assess them with the stormwater tax district than it is to go after them with an agreement, because we have that over the entire development. So it's easier for us to go after them that way in a legal sense. But as I said, at the end of the day, you as a city have the legal means to go after any of them to get it done.
Okay.
It's a matter of policy amongst the council of how much you want to flex that muscle and spend that money.
Okay.
The ones that are undersized, what do they do?
The undersized ones, in that instance, it's just the maintenance would be more frequent than other ones because they were built before the stormwater rules changed, and that happens.
So first step, send out another letter, and like John said, list what other ponds they may have. But then I guess, what is our next step? That would be the next council's question.
Well, we still have some that are identified as private, and I know that may involve legal costs in identifying who really has the ownership. And on this sheet, some are private in column 2, but then in column 3, there's, I don't know if it's what they think or what we think it might be. Hennepin, like 81, Hennepin forfeited, might be Saunders Lake HOA. I mean, I think at some point in time, those need to be identified, because in the future, they're going to come up eventually. I don't know if we want to tackle that at this stage, but it is something to put on the to-do list. So that eventually, and if this was the perfect world from my perspective, eventually this sheet would have absolutely everybody identified, who is the owner. I even would say, if it's an HOA, that there's a column added that says it's Joe Blow at 1525. And
Right.
of course we know that'll change, but at least the next time a letter or a reminder has to go out, we got a focal point to send to.
The other thing we could do, so the ones that are private or unidentified, we could look at what is the value of those in terms of their treatment. And if they're a low value stormwater pond, maybe we let that go to the end. Or
And
put
how
it,
do you identify the value?
number of acres going, well, ask Allison. I'll let her.
Well, you mean the potential for failing?
No. For instance, so there might be, there's a stormwater, let's say there's a stormwater pond that drains 10 acres, and that stormwater pond eventually drains into Lake Minnetonka. Okay? Okay, that might be a higher value stormwater pond because of the filtration that it provides. But let's just say there's a small stormwater pond that drains 2 acres and it drains into a non-existent, whatever.
Wetlands.
Yeah, wetlands, okay. So that might be a lower value, if you will.
Okay.
Kind of like wetlands. There's different
Right.
functioning wetlands and higher value wetlands. So maybe if that's the case with stormwater ponds, we take a look at it and say the lower value ones we kind of put towards the bottom and work on the higher value ones.
Some subjectivity there, but
There might be. I'm just trying to get at how you
right.
get to
Okay.
to all of them.
Or you just set criteria.
Right.
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 You have to
Somebody sits down
define.
and sets the
Yeah.
criteria.
I do have one more. 64 says it's City of Minnetrista. It's a 9, but it wasn't noted as one that had been previously. Do we know where that one is?
I'll check on that.
Okay.
I think we've looked at that one before. I don't know if we know where that is. Is there a map of number 9?
We can certainly, I think the next time I bring this to council, I'll bring it as an information component, and I'll have the master's spreadsheet with the 2020 score, 2022 score, and the projected 2032, pardon me. We want to do that 10-year projection. I won't have the ownership cleaned up because that'll take some time. But we'll also include that notation if there's a difference in the score, if something dropped off, whatever that reasoning was, along with a draft letter to be, if the council wants to see the draft letter, if you just want me to go ahead and send out a similar one to what I sent out before, but include, by the way, you also have these ponds under your jurisdiction. I can do it either way. But I'd like to follow up with the council with that overall data of the whole system.
Okay. Anything
you.
else?
Nope, that's great direction. Thank you.
So the only other thing I thought we should do, since we have our new administrator on board, we've talked about doing a strategic planning session, goal setting session, and I know we're getting into the year, but I think we should do one sooner than later so that we can all put our ideas out there on the table. What do you think?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. So when do you want to do it?
Good question. We'll ask Jasper.
I would say give me like a month or 2 to kind of get the lay of the land, right? Because if I'm going to facilitate, I got to kind of understand all of the things that might come up. So I would say within a month we could probably get it scheduled for a summer, maybe June or something like that. We can have a conversation and basically I've done this before where we set goals and we set annual goals, biannual goals, and they align with the comprehensive plan and they also align with what City Council wants to do. So kind of a checklist gives us piggybacks off of the comprehensive plan, but then, gives staff focus areas to really focus on as far as priorities go.
Okay. Good. So June sometime? Okay. All right. Anything else? That's all I had. Right? Okay. We can be adjourned. We have 35 minutes then. Wow. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So Kathleen made that motion and Ann seconded that. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 5-0.